My name is Lyra Beaumont, 28 years old. Thanksgiving is supposed to smell like butter and thyme and second chances, but that night it tasted like metal. We were halfway through the ritual, carved turkey, store-bought rolls, sweating under a tea towel, Jenna pushing peas into green lines, when my father set down his fork and said, as calmly as if he were naming the weather, "You've never contributed to this family." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The sentence sat between the mashed potatoes and the gravy boat like a blade. I waited for someone, anyone, to protest. My mother stared at the cranberry sauce as if she could read a nicer reality in the gloss. Jenna's shoulders folded in on themselves. Conflict makes her small. The silence hit harder than the accusation, because silence is a vote when you've known each other this long. A heat climbed my neck. I scrolled through the last 2 years in my mind like security footage. The month Dad's unemployment ran out and the rent still got paid. By me. The night Mom's engine died and my card covered the repair. The grocery trips I pretended were extras so she wouldn't feel embarrassed. The textbooks Jenna needed, sent without a receipt. The utilities that never went dark because the auto pays were all in my name. I didn't do it to be praised. I did it so the house would keep breathing. Apparently that makes you invisible. I didn't argue. If I'd opened my mouth, all the careful, quiet years would have come spilling out, and I refused to give them that spectacle. I stood, chair legs squealing on tile, and said the only sentence that felt safe in my mouth, "I'll go." I walked to my old room. It still smelled like the lavender sachet Mom tucked in my dresser when I was 17 and believed leaving would be clean. I packed a small suitcase with the clothes I kept here just in case, took my car keys off the hook by the back door, and left without the theater of goodbye. No slamming, no tears, just absence, like a light being switched off. I drove to my apartment, shoebox, thin walls, the deadbolt that needs 2 twists and a hip nudge to catch, and sat on the floor with my coat still on, letting my body finish the feeling my face wouldn't show at the table. I blocked their numbers so I wouldn't go soft at midnight. The rent auto pay for their apartment, the one in my name, kept ticking on because I didn't trust myself yet. I told myself I'd deal with it tomorrow. Tomorrow arrived, and I kept moving it down the calendar like it was heavy. For 3 weeks, nothing. No calls, no texts. The first few mornings I checked my phone out of muscle memory. The blank screen stung less each day until it didn't. My paycheck lasted. The kettle whistled. The quiet in my apartment developed corners and then softened. I replaced the busted lamp with a thrifted one that glowed like gentleness. I went to bed earlier. I breathed. On day 21, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it die against the wood of my nightstand. Something thin and insistent in my chest told me to answer. "Lyra?" Jenna, already crying. "Why did the rent stop?" I sat up. The room lurched the way rooms do when an old habit gets kicked. I said carefully, like I was setting glass on a table. I wasn't doing anything for this family. Silence on her end, a tiny inhale. Then the line went dead. I stared at the ceiling until the texture looked like a map. The apartment they live in is in my name. $1,500 a month I've been quietly paying because Dad's benefits evaporated and Mom's part-time wage buys groceries and not much else. Without me, the numbers don't add. Part of me expected the math to teach them what I couldn't. Another part of me knew about pride and how it will bankrupt you before it lets you bend. The next morning, Mom's text arrived. Syrup over glass. Families say things they don't mean when they're under pressure. Let's not let outside stress divide what we built. She didn't mention dinner. She didn't mention never contributed. She folded the moment into a spiritual fortune cookie and hoped I'd swallow it. That afternoon, an email from Dad, subject line, "Bridge," landed in my inbox. He didn't apologize. He wrote about tough times and temporary setbacks and asked if I could help with rent until I get back on my feet, as if never contributed were a typo and not a verdict. I didn't finish the paragraph. Delete. Block sender. Days thinned. The quiet got new dimensions. The neighbor's laugh through the wall at 9 p.m. The tinnitus hum of my refrigerator when the street outside went honest. I started cooking for one like it was an art, plating food on the cheap ceramic I bought when I first moved out and wanted to prove something to myself. I slept. I woke. I went to work. My heartbeat remembered a normal tempo. Then Jenna again. This time a text, stripped of emojis. They're scared. I set the phone down and leaned back against my cabinet. Fear is a poor teacher. but it is a teacher. For a minute, relief tapped at the door. Maybe this was the point where reality negotiated the settlement pride wouldn't. I didn't answer. Let the message be a record. That night, Mom posted on Facebook. Of course she did. A photo of a burning candle and a paragraph about family unity being tested in difficult times. The comments came like rain. Sympathy, scripture, passive-aggressive wisdom. Dad posted a picture of Jenna on the porch and captioned it, "At least one of my girls knows what loyalty means." The punch landed low. My phone lit with relatives I hadn't heard from in years, taking the temperature of my sanity. I turned the screen face down. The only call I took was Aunt Lisa. She doesn't do performance. "What's going on?" she asked, voice flat with purpose. When I told her everything, 2 years of rent, repairs, groceries, tuition, auto pays, the sentence at dinner, she went very quiet. For a second, I thought the line had dropped. Then, "You didn't break this family, Lara. You just stopped holding it together." The sentence slotted into me like a level snapping true. For a long breath, I felt steady. It didn't last. 5 days later, Jenna texted again. Not crying this time, just exhausted. "They borrowed your second car for the weekend. Didn't tell you because they knew you'd say no. My stomach turned the way a room turns before you faint. I'd left the spare key on the little hook by the back door last spring when Dad needed rides to physical therapy, and Mom didn't like driving on the highway. I told myself it was temporary. Temporaries tend to rot into entitlements when you stop checking them." Jenna sent photos. Food wrappers ground into the back floor mat, the fuel gauge groaning toward E, a smear of something sticky on the console I chose not to identify. I didn't text back. I drove over that night without warning, walked into the house without waiting for someone to decide if I belonged, took the keys off the hook, and left. No voices followed me onto the porch. It was almost funny, if you can laugh while you're boiling. Back in my apartment, I sat on the floor with my back against the door. The deadbolt held after 2 twists and a hip nudge, and I thought, replace it soon. I opened every account tied to their address: rent portal, utilities, phone lines, internet, cable, streaming, the stupid shared Spotify account Dad insists on because he hates ads. One by one, I cut the wires. It felt less like revenge and more like CPR, hands placed correctly, pressure applied where life requires it, except this time, the person I was saving was me. The next morning, my phone lit up. "Internet's down. Phone won't work. Your sister needs it for school." "Lyra, what did you do?" "I made tea. I watched the steam curl and disappear." I didn't answer. By evening, a different kind of message arrived. Screenshots from my college friend Kelly. Mom had slid into her DMs with a paragraph about how I was isolating and refusing contact, and would she, as someone close, please check on me because we're afraid she's having a breakdown. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then laughed once. When control fails, some people pick Compassion's costume off the rack and try it on for size. I didn't reply to Mom. I sent Kelly a single sentence. "I'm okay. Thanks for letting me know." Then I put my phone in a drawer and listened to the building breathe. I thought that would be the end. Autopays cut, narratives ignored, lines drawn thick enough to see at night. But stories don't end just because you stop providing the soundtrack. They find new instruments. They knock with new hands. I rinsed my mug and set it upside down in the rack, and for the first time since Thanksgiving, I believed I could finish this without breaking. I didn't know yet how much worse it would get. I didn't know about the cousin with the backpack. I didn't know about the laptop I'd left in the closet of my old room, sleeping like a mine. I only knew the deadbolt caught on the second twist that night, and the sound it made felt almost like faith. The first sign of collapse came quietly. 3 days after I shut off every account in my name, Jenna sent another text. "No water for 3 days. Mom's crying. Dad's furious." I stared at the message while my kettle hissed. I thought about replying. Then I didn't. I'd spent too many years trying to fix fires I didn't start. The silence felt like armor. That night, Mom's Facebook post appeared. I didn't need to follow her. People sent me screenshots like news alerts. It was a photo of a candle with the caption, "Some people let pride destroy what others built with love." The comments came in waves. "Stay strong. She'll come around. Kids forget who raised them." Then Dad's contribution, a picture of Jenna on the porch with the caption, "At least one of my girls still knows what loyalty means." The blow wasn't the words, it was the choreography. They were writing a version of the story where I was the villain, where the years I'd quietly paid for everything were erased in a single post. Aunt Lisa texted me a screenshot of her own comment underneath Mom's. Funny how quickly people forget who paid their rent. That one sentence landed like a spark in a dry forest. The comment stopped immediately. I laughed, a sharp, half sound that tasted like disbelief. Lisa had always been the one who saw through their performances. She didn't apologize for honesty, and she didn't sugarcoat. She'd been waiting for this fracture. That night she called me. Let me guess, they're broke, but somehow still the victims. Pretty much, I said, pacing the apartment. Lisa's voice softened. They're spiraling because the story's changing. You're not their safety net anymore, and they don't know how to function without someone holding the floor up. I sighed. I thought cutting them off would make things clearer. It's just louder. It will quiet down, she said, but not before it gets worse. People like them. She stopped, exhaled. They find new ways to get attention when they lose control. Watch your boundaries. They'll test every door you've ever left open. I didn't know she meant that literally. 2 nights later, around midnight, I got a text from Jenna. They used your car again. I blinked. What car? The one you left in the garage. Dad said he needed it for errands. It took a second to process. My second car, the one I'd left behind when I moved to the city, was technically mine. The registration, the insurance, all still under my name. I'd left a spare key on the hook months ago when Dad needed to drive to his physical therapy appointments. I told myself it was temporary. Apparently, temporary had become permission. According to Jenna, they'd gone upstate to clear their heads. 600 miles of gas, food wrappers, and bad decisions. She sent me photos of the inside, trash everywhere, fingerprints smudging the windows, the fuel light blinking red. I didn't respond. I drove over the next morning. The neighborhood looked the same trimmed lawns, same cracked sidewalk, but it felt different. Smaller, like the house had aged with their excuses. No one answered when I knocked. The door was unlocked, like always. I stepped inside. The air smelled like dust and cinnamon, the scent Mom used to hide tension. My car keys still hung on the hook by the door, glinting like betrayal. I grabbed them. Lyra? Mom's voice floated from the kitchen. You're here early. I made pancakes. I turned. She was smiling, all soft eyes and apron strings, like she could erase months of manipulation with the smell of breakfast. I came for my car, I said. Her face fell a little, then regrouped into something careful. We were going to put gas in it. You didn't have to come all this way. Dad's voice came from the hallway. You can't just take off with it whenever you feel like it. You left it here. It's registered to me, I said. It's mine. He smirked. You always think everything's yours. I didn't argue. I reached behind the door, pulled the spare key off the wall, pocketed it, and walked out. No one followed. No one stopped me. Back home, I parked the car outside my apartment, locked it twice, and sat in the driver's seat with my hands gripping the wheel. My pulse thudded in my throat. They had no idea what they'd just done. The car wasn't about transportation. It was about entitlement. It was proof that even after everything, they still believed I existed to provide. I walked inside, made tea, opened my laptop, and started cutting the remaining threads. Rent, canceled. Utilities, terminated. Phone plan, suspended. Streaming, cable, and Spotify, closed. By midnight, every service connected to their address went dark. For the first time in years, I felt light. Freedom doesn't roar, it hums. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Mom, internet's down. Can you fix it? Dad, what did you do? We can't even make calls. Jenna, they're freaking out. Please say something. I didn't reply. Later that day, Lisa texted me again. Whatever you just did, it's working. They're panicking. Dad's calling every relative for help. Mom's spinning the poor us story again. But no one's buying it this time. For a few hours, I let myself breathe. I made dinner, played music too loud, danced barefoot across the kitchen tile. But that night, a new message appeared. This one from an unknown number. Hey, this is Kelly. Your mom messaged me. She said you're having a breakdown and refusing to talk to anyone. She asked me to check on you. I sat down hard. Of course. If she couldn't guilt me directly, she'd start recruiting allies. I texted back, I'm fine, Kelly. Thanks for checking. Please block her. She's lying. Kelly replied, already did. For the first time, I realized how far Mom would go to control the narrative. She couldn't stand the silence, so she'd fill it with whatever story made her the hero again. I lay awake until 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, the hum of my refrigerator blending with the pounding in my chest. I wondered what version of me they were selling to the world now. The cold daughter, the ungrateful one, the crazy one. It was almost impressive how fast they could pivot from victimizing to villainizing. The next afternoon, Lisa called again. "Brace yourself," she said. "I heard from someone at church. They're telling people you drained their bank accounts and left them with nothing." I laughed so hard it came out broken. That's not even creative. "They're desperate," she said. "And desperate people do stupid things. Keep your doors locked." I always do. But that wasn't true. My deadbolt still stuck on the first twist. I made a note to fix it. That evening, I checked my mailbox. Inside was a plain white envelope with no return address. I almost tossed it, assuming it was junk. Then I saw the handwriting, Mom's. Inside was a note written in blue ink. "We all say things we don't mean. Come home before it's too late." No apology, no acknowledgement, just a command disguised as compassion. I folded the note once, then again, and dropped it in the trash. But that night, as I was falling asleep, a thought slipped in. Soft, quiet, dangerous. What would too late mean to her? The question clung to me until morning. When my phone rang the next day, it wasn't Mom. It was Jenna. Her voice was sharp, tired, different. "You need to know what they did." That was the moment everything changed. Jenna's voice on the phone was different this time, stripped of softness, carved down to something raw. "They did what?" I asked. She hesitated, then said it all in one breath. "Dad let cousin Marcus move in. He's sleeping in your old room, and he's been using your laptop." I froze. "My what?" "The one you left in the closet when you moved out," she said. "Dad told him it was fine. Said you wouldn't mind." I stood so fast the chair screeched against the floor. "That's my work laptop, Jenna. My entire life's on there. Banking info, passwords." "I know," she interrupted, her voice trembling. "That's why I'm calling. He's been logging into random sites, downloading stuff. I told Dad it wasn't okay, but he just told me to stop causing drama." For a moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. They had crossed another line, not out of need, but entitlement. They'd stopped seeing the difference between what was mine and what was theirs. "Where's the laptop now?" I asked. "In my room," Jenna said. "I took it when Marcus went out. He flipped out, but I locked it in my closet. I didn't want him touching it again." "You did the right thing," I said quietly. "Don't let anyone in your room. I'm coming to get it." "Lyra, please don't." But I was already grabbing my keys. The drive to the house felt shorter this time, maybe because the anger made the world move faster. The same cracked sidewalk, the same faded mailbox with our last name stenciled across it. But I felt nothing now. The house didn't look like home anymore. It looked like evidence. When I rang the doorbell, I saw Dad's silhouette through the frosted glass. He hesitated before opening the door. "Well, look who decided to visit," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm here for my laptop." He frowned, feigning confusion. "Laptop?" "Don't do that," I said, stepping forward. "The one you let Marcus use." "Marcus?" he scoffed. "He's family. He needed it. It's not yours to give. Everything in this house was paid for with our blood, sweat, and tears," he snapped. "You think a laptop changes that?" "Paid for with my bank account, actually," I said. That's when Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "You hungry?" she asked softly. "We just made pancakes." The sheer normalcy of her tone nearly unhinged me. I stared at her, trying to find a crack of remorse in her face. "You gave my property to a stranger." "Marcus isn't a stranger," she said, her voice steady. "He's family, and he needed help." I turned back to Dad. "You said I never contributed to this family. I'm just making sure you finally live like I never did." He blinked, processing the words. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Footsteps creaked on the stairs. Jenna appeared, clutching the laptop to her chest. She didn't say a word, just handed it to me like she was returning something sacred. I nodded once. "Thanks." Dad's face twisted. "You're really going to take everything and just leave us to rot?" "I'm taking what's mine," I said, and stepped toward the door. Behind me, Mom's voice cracked for the first time. "Lyra, please, you don't have to be like this." I paused at the threshold. "I learned it from you." Then I walked out. The air outside felt sharp and clean. I got in my car, started the engine, and watched their silhouettes through the front window. Dad pacing, Mom frozen by the sink, Jenna standing still like someone stuck between two fires. By the time I got home, I still hadn't taken a full breath. I set the laptop on my kitchen table, powered it on, and changed every password I could think of. Bank accounts, work logins, emails, every corner of my digital life that had ever touched theirs. I didn't sleep that night. I kept expecting another call, another excuse, another manipulation disguised as apology. None came. Instead, the next morning, Jenna texted me, "Marcus is gone." Apparently, after I left with the laptop, he got into a screaming match with Dad. Said he'd been promised a place to stay. When Dad told him to get out, Marcus punched a hole in the living room wall and stormed off with his backpack. "They have 10 days to leave," she added a few minutes later. "Landlord's starting eviction." I stared at the message, not sure what to feel. Relief? Sadness? Both felt too big, too complicated. Mostly, I just felt done. But my parents didn't. That evening, I got a voicemail from Mom, her voice trembling with a blend of anger and martyrdom. "We all say things we don't mean, Lyra. Maybe it's time to stop this. You've made your point. You can't keep punishing us for one mistake. Families don't do this to each other." I played it once, then again, listening to the lack of accountability in every syllable. Not one word about the stolen car, the broken trust, the laptop handed to a stranger. Just a demand wrapped in guilt. I deleted it. Then Dad's message came next. 2 minutes of self-pity. "Families stick together. You're blowing this out of proportion. This has gone too far. We're struggling, Lyra. You know that. If we're going to survive, we have to help each other." The same man who once said I'd never contributed, now begging for mercy without naming a single wrong. I sent both messages to Lisa. She called immediately. "They're unraveling," she said, "and they're trying to pull you down with them." "I know." "Don't respond," she warned. "They'll twist anything you say into proof that you're the unstable one." I laughed, but it didn't sound right. Too late. Mom's already DM'd my college friends saying I'm having a breakdown. Lisa sighed. "Of course she has. It's the oldest trick in the book. If they can't control you, they'll control how other people see you." 2 days later, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and froze. A woman stood there, tall, gray hair pulled into a tight bun, holding a reusable grocery bag and a folder. It took me a second to recognize her. "Aunt Valerie?" She hadn't spoken to our side of the family in almost 8 years. Mom always called her the black sheep, said she'd walked out when things got hard. I opened the door. "Hi, honey," she said quietly. "Can we talk?" We sat in the lobby downstairs, not my apartment. She didn't ask to come in, and I respected her for that. "I heard what happened," she said. "All of it. Through Lisa, through Facebook, through whispers that travel faster than truth." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Valerie reached into her folder and handed me a piece of paper. "You're not crazy," she said. "They did the same thing to me." I unfolded the document, a copy of a loan agreement from 2007. My parents' names signed at the bottom. $9,000 borrowed. No repayment. I stared at the page until the numbers blurred. "They told me I abandoned them," she said. "But the truth is, I just stopped being their bank." Something inside me cracked open. Not pain, not relief, but recognition. I wasn't the first. I was just the last one still paying the bill. Valerie leaned forward. "You're not doing this out of cruelty. You're doing it because you finally learned they won't stop until you're empty." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Good," she said, "because they're about to learn what happens when the well runs dry." As she left, she touched my shoulder lightly. "They'll try one more time. They always do. Be ready." I didn't understand then what she meant, but I would, sooner than I thought. When Aunt Lisa texted, "Lunch, time to address the elephant," I should have known what I was walking into. I told myself it was just going to be her, maybe Valerie. But when I pulled up to the small restaurant off the highway, there were already too many cars out front. Inside, 8 people sat around a long table, all familiar faces, all pretending to smile. Lisa, with her arms crossed and eyes sharp as ever. 2 cousins I hadn't spoken to since Grandma's funeral. Uncle Greg, always the peacekeeper, but only when it served him. 3 aunts, including one who'd once accused me of thinking I was better than everyone. The noise in the room felt wrong, forced. Even the waitress looked uneasy as she poured water. "Lyra," Greg said, rising a little too enthusiastically. "You look good. Sit down." I did, slowly. Lisa met my eyes across the table. She didn't say a word, just gave me a small nod. I understood. Let them talk first. It started innocent enough. One cousin mentioned how family dynamics are tough. Another said something about how pride can get in the way of forgiveness. Then one of the aunts added softly, Your parents have had a hard time lately, honey. Maybe this is all just a misunderstanding. I took a sip of water, said nothing. Greg leaned forward, elbows on the table. You know, your dad's under a lot of pressure. Losing a job messes with a man's pride. He says things he doesn't mean. I smiled, but it wasn't friendly. He said a lot of things he meant. Greg blinked, thrown. Well, sure, but families make mistakes. That's not a mistake, I said, voice steady. That's a pattern. The air changed. Conversations around us dimmed. Aunt Maureen, the self-appointed matriarch, finally said what they'd all been tiptoeing around. Don't you think it's time to help them again, just until they're back on their feet? Lisa leaned back, expression unreadable. She was letting them dig their own hole. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Valerie's folder, the one she'd given me with shaking hands. I slid it across the table toward Maureen. You should read this before giving me advice. The aunts exchanged wary glances before opening it. Their eyes scanned the page. The words loan agreement sat in bold at the top, followed by a date from 16 years ago, and two familiar signatures, Mom and Dad. $9,000 borrowed, never repaid. The silence that followed was heavy, like the room itself had stopped breathing. Lisa broke it first. This isn't the first time they drained someone dry and rewrote the story. She's just the first to stop pretending she doesn't see it. Greg cleared his throat. Lyra, you don't have to humiliate them. Humiliate? I repeated, almost laughing. They've been telling people I'm mentally unstable. They gave my laptop to a stranger. They stole my car, my time, my money, and called it love. If this feels humiliating, maybe that's a side effect of truth. Maureen tried to recover. But what if they end up homeless? Won't people talk? I leaned forward, voice low. They didn't care what people said when they called me ungrateful on Facebook. They didn't care when they let Marcus sleep in my bed. They didn't care when they said I never contributed. Why should I care now? No one had an answer. Lisa finally pushed her chair back and stood. Lunch is over. The waitress came by nervously, asking if we wanted dessert. No one spoke. As I walked out, I heard one of my cousins whisper, She's changed. Lisa turned back and said, without missing a beat, No. She finally stopped apologizing. Outside, the sunlight hit my face like a dare. That night, my phone buzzed with one message. From Mom. Thanks for humiliating us today. You really are colder than I thought. I stared at it for a long time, then I typed back. Keep pushing, and I'll send that loan agreement to every person you've lied to. I'm not scared of you anymore. Then I blocked her number. 10 days later, they were gone. The landlord changed the locks and listed the unit again. Jenna texted me a photo of the eviction notice taped to the door. It's over. She'd packed her own suitcase days earlier and moved into a sublet near campus. I wired her enough for a couple of months without her asking. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. Dad was crashing on a friend's couch. Mom was staying with a cousin she hadn't spoken to in a decade. And for the first time in my life, they weren't speaking to each other. Lisa called a few days later. It's done, she said simply. I don't feel relieved, I admitted. Just empty. That's what peace feels like at first, she said. You're not used to it yet. That night, I opened my window and let the spring air drift in. The apartment was silent, clean, whole. The plants on the sill caught the evening light, small green proofs of survival. I sat down, opened my laptop, the same one that had been in Marcus's hands weeks ago, and stared at the blank screen. For the first time, the emptiness didn't scare me. It felt like possibility. 6 months passed. No calls, no texts, no guilt-dipped paragraphs on Facebook. For the first time in my adult life, silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. My paycheck lasted. My apartment smelled like fresh coffee instead of anxiety. I didn't have to flinch every time my phone buzzed, wondering who needed what now. The world didn't collapse without them. It just settled. Jenna was the only one I still spoke to. She sent pictures of her dorm, her new friends, a stray cat that followed her home one night. She'd stopped sounding like someone apologizing for existing. I paid her rent each month, quietly, not because I had to, but because she never made me feel like I owed her. One night in March, she texted, They're living separately now. Dad's renting a room above some guy's garage. Mom's with Aunt Brenda. They don't talk anymore. I read it twice, then set the phone down. No anger, no satisfaction, just a strange kind of stillness. They'd burned the bridge. I just refused to rebuild it. 2 months later, on the morning of my 29th birthday, I woke up to another message from Jenna. Mom wants to drop something off. Says she won't stay. Just a card. I didn't respond. By noon, there was a soft knock on my door. I didn't move. A minute later, the elevator dinged. When I finally opened the door, a plastic bakery bag sat on the mat. Inside, a store-bought cake, a cheap card, and a note folded in half. The card had glitter that stuck to my fingers. The note was written in her careful, self-righteous handwriting. You've made your point. We all say things we don't mean. Maybe it's time to come back to your senses. This isn't who you are. No, sorry. No, thank you. No, I miss you. Just manipulation wrapped in nostalgia. I sat on the floor for a long time staring at it. Then I picked up my phone and typed the last message I would ever send her. If you contact me again without a real apology, I'll send every receipt, every photo, and that loan agreement to everyone who still believes your version of the story. I'm not your backup plan. This was your choice. Live with it. Then I blocked her number and her email, and every account she could ever use to reach me. A month later, I moved for work. New city, new apartment, new number. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I never heard from Dad. According to Lisa, he's still telling people I moved away and got caught up in city life. It's easier for him than admitting he drove me away. That's fine. Let him live in the fiction he built. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself wondering if Mom sits somewhere pretending she doesn't miss me. If she tells herself she did everything she could. I wonder if she remembers the dinner where it all started, where she kept chewing while Dad said I'd never contributed. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. It doesn't matter anymore. Because here's what I've learned. When you show people you'll always be there, no matter what, they stop seeing you as a person. They start seeing you as a resource. And once you become their safety net, they stop worrying about falling. Now I live differently. My apartment is small but full of light. The air smells like basil and soap. My laughter sounds unfamiliar sometimes, but I'm getting used to it. On my desk sits a single drawer I almost never open. Inside is the old key to my parents' house. Rusted, useless. I keep it not as a memory, but as proof. Proof that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that stay closed until someone learns how to knock. The funny thing about peace is how quiet it is. No climaxes, no apologies that fix everything. Just mornings where coffee stays warm and nights that end without panic. Sometimes Jenna calls while walking back from class, telling me about her job interviews or the paper she's proud of. Sometimes she pauses and says, "I'm sorry for everything." And I tell her the truth. You don't need to be. You broke the pattern. When I hang up, I sit for a while and listen to the quiet. Not the silence of being ignored, the silence of being free. I don't hate them. I don't wish them harm. But I will never let them forget, through the emptiness, through the distance, that kindness can ruin the wrong people, and sometimes walking away is the only thing that saves you. Because in the end, I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped financing the illusion that it was whole. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Jenna. They're out. Officially, you did the right thing. For a while, I believed her. But endings, I've learned, don't arrive all at once. They sneak back for one last test. And mine was still on its way.